Hello everyone, welcome back to iFashi. Today we're dropping the sewing part of our basic skirt that we drafted last week. Remember when we dropped the tutorial of this two-piece jacket and skirt? We also dropped the tutorial of the drafting of the skirt, and we taught us how to do our knee contouring when drafting a basic skirt. In the part 1 of this tutorial, we went ahead to draft out the front and the back piece, and then we used our tracing wheel to trace it out on another pattern paper. It's on this new pattern paper that we added our seam allowance. So today we're going to be using this pattern paper to cut out on fabric to make the skirt together in this tutorial. So please do well to check out the part 1 so that you would know and understand where we stopped in the previous tutorial. This tutorial is not just about how to make a skirt. We are also going to be teaching you how to make the inside of your work very, very neat. If you are still weaving the inside of your skirt in 2026, this tutorial is for you. Come with me, turn both the zipper allowance and the sides allowance using your lining to give you a finished inner look on your skirt. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do well to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you'll be notified whenever we drop our weekly tutorials. Subscription is free, guys. Please support us by subscribing to the channel. So here is the tweed fabric that we'll be working with in this tutorial. The first thing I'm going to do on this fabric is to iron my hairstay to the fabric. When you're working with a tweed fabric, endeavor to iron your hairstay before cutting at all to reduce the shedding. Now here's the lining I'll be using. I'll go ahead now, place my pattern paper on top and cut out. Before I cut out, we need to determine the length of the skirt. Remember, the day we drafted, we stopped at our knee length. I don't want this skirt to get to my knee, so I just measured from my waist down to 20 inches that I want, and I folded in the remaining of the paper. So I'll place it on top of the fabric now and cut out both the lining and the main fabric. So here's what I have after cutting out. We've cut out the back and front, and here's the center front on fold. Remember, cut your center front on fold. I also added 2 inches to the down part of my skirt. I did this only on the main fabric because the lining will be turning it inwards. And then we already have our sewing allowance on the sides and the zipper allowance on the sides as well. I only added 0.5 to the waist that I'll use to turn the main fabric with the lining. Remember, I mentioned in the drafting tutorial that you can use this pattern to cut a long skirt and a short skirt. You just need to work around the length. Now I'm going to remove the pattern paper and the pins, then we'll start working on the skirt. Now here is our front piece that was cut on fold. I'm going to go ahead and open it out, and the first thing I'm going to do is to notch the upper part, which is the waist, because sometimes the waist and the down part can be confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and notch my zipper allowance on the back and notch the sides of my waist of the front. And then the next thing is to place the right sides of the back piece facing the right side of my front piece. I'll place it face each other like this. The zipper allowance will be at the middle. Then I'll go ahead and pin down the sides. I'll use my pin to secure both the zipper allowance I have at the back piece, and then I'll also pin down my seam allowance I have on the sides before I take it to the sewing machine to join them. And when I'm joining, I'm not going to close my zipper allowance yet. I'm going to leave it open. In fact, the whole of my back, I'm going to leave it open. We will close it when we're attaching the lining. Right now, this is the part where our zipper will be attached at the back. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to pin down my sides, because we're going to take this to the sewing machine to stitch down the sides, the two sides, following our seam allowance. And for you to know where you'll be sewing through, you need to take your waist measurements on the waistline, come down with 10 inches or 9 inches, depends on your measurement. Take your hip measurement on that point, and then use your fabric pen to highlight your seam allowance that you'll be stitching through. I'll repeat this thing that I just did now on my lining piece as well. I'll place the front piece down, place the back piece on top, right sides facing each other. I'll secure the zipper allowance and the sides allowance with my pin before I'll go to the sewing machine to stitch. And after stitching the two sides, I'll be right back to show you what we have. Now this is what we have after stitching down the two sides on both the main fabric and on the lining. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to remove the pins that we have on the zipper allowance. Remember, we've not touched our zipper allowance on the back. So I'll remove the pins, both the one on the main fabric and on the lining, and then I'll place these two skirts right sides facing each other. I'll place the main fabric down, and then I'll place the lining on top, making sure that the right sides of both fabrics are facing each other. Then we'll go ahead and do our turning. We'll be turning this skirt at the down part first before the waist part, so that the lining can bring up that 2 inches allowance we added to our fabric. If you stitch your waist first, it's going to affect your skirt. So endeavor to sew the down part first before you sew the up. Before I take it to the sewing machine now, I'm going to go ahead and use my pin to pin both sides down, but I'm pinning the down part first because that's where I'll be stitching first, right? So after pinning the down part, when you're pinning, make sure your allowance aligns. The sewing allowance you have on the lining and the sewing allowance you have on the main fabric, make sure it aligns so that there will be no squeezing whatsoever at any point. So after pinning down the down part, I'll go ahead and pin the waist as well. Pin it from one side straight to the other, and I'll take it to the sewing machine to run a stitch on these two parts. Remember, I mentioned you're supposed to stitch the down part first before the waist. After stitching the down part and the waist part, we are going to have our two sides still open, which are the zipper allowance sides. Yeah, that's where we'll turn everything out from. But first, let's go do this stitching. I'll be right back to show you what we have. Now this is what we have after stitching the down part and the upper part, and as you can see, the waist is neatly turned, and then the 2 inches allowance we added on the down part has moved up because we cut the lining 2 inches shorter than the main fabric. I also top stitched the waist part. We're going to have to iron this so that all these squeezes will flatten out. Now another thing you need to do is to notch this part, especially if you did open seam. If you opened your seam allowance to stitch, you are going to have to notch it so that it doesn't give it a squeeze effect on the outside. So what I'm doing here is just notching these sides, the part where the back joined to the front, right? The seam allowance we have on the inside, you have to notch it on both sides. So now we have the 2 zipper allowance opened. Those are the only 2 places that we have not closed, right? So the next thing now is to iron and move into the fixing of the zipper. Now for the zipper, here's the zipper I'll be using. The first thing I'll do is to place the right side of my zipper facing the right side of my main fabric, and I'll pin it down, only the fabric. And I'm also placing this at the edge of our zipper allowance. Remember, we added 1.5 for zipper allowance, right? So I am pinning this on top of that 1.5 inch, only on the main fabric. As you can see, I left out the lining piece, right? The reason I did this is because I'll be using the lining to turn this zipper. Now let me open up the zipper so you see what I mean. By the time you finish stitching it on the main fabric first, you're going to push the head of the zipper towards the rough side of the fabric, and then you bring your lining downwards and then make a stitch on top. It's advisable to use your zipper foot to make this stitch because at this point you're not seeing your zipper, right? So you just make a straight stitch following that place to use the lining to turn the zip. And when you're stitching, make sure you end your stitch at the end of your zipper or at the end of where you want your zip to stop. You can measure 9 inches and end your stitch there. Now this is what I just did. After fixing the zipper onto the main fabric and using the lining to turn, this is what you're going to have on the wrong side. With this, you have your zipper in between the main fabric and the lining, and I stopped before the end of my zip, remaining the other side of the zip that is yet to be fixed to the other side of the skirt. Before I attach this second side of the zipper to the other side of my skirt, I'm going to have to bring out this skirt to the right side so that it will be easy for me to turn it down first before attaching the zip. Now after bringing it out to the right side, you can see the zipper that we fixed before is looking very neat on both the inside and on the outside. The rough side of the zipper has been hidden. Now we're going to turn the down part first before we fix the second side of the zipper. You can also turn this down part first before fixing any side of the zipper at all. whichever method you want to use, it works both ways, right? So now I'm going to place this skirt right sides facing each other and start joining from the end of my skirt. Now that part where the lining was joined to the main fabric at the down part, you're going to place them facing each other and use sew the two main fabric together upwards to go and meet the end of our zipper, then sew the two lining together upwards to go and meet the end of our zipper as well. And by doing that, you have turned the down part of the skirt. It will now remain the one side of our zipper. Now this is what we have. This is the end part of our skirt, the down part, right? I've stitched the two main fabric together and stopped at the end of my zipper. I also stitched the two lining together and stopped at the end of my zipper. And when you turn it to the right side of the cloth, this is what you're going to have. The outside is going to look this neat and the inside is going to look neat as well. That's the essence of the turning. So the remaining thing for us to do now is to attach this remaining zipper that is still dangling that we have not fixed. And for you to do this, you're going to bring out your skirt to the right side so that you place the zipper right sides facing each other and pin down. After stitching it, you now use the lining to turn it as well. So to make it easy, I'm closing down my zip and bringing out my skirt to the wrong side. And then I'll pin down my zipper only to the main fabric. I'm not pinning it on the lining as well here, right? So after stitching it down, after running a straight stitch on it, I'll now use the lining to turn it the same way we did the other side of our zipper. And after doing that, this is what you're going to have. Your zipper will be in between your lining and the main fabric. And the only place that will be left to bring it out is the center back of our lining. Remember, when I did the two stitching, I did not finish the lining on because I need to leave out a space to be able to access the inside where I'll turn out everything from. So after turning it out from that point, you can now hand stitch it or use hemming gum to close it, but it's better to hand stitch it so that hemming gum doesn't come off after subsequent wash, right? So I'm going to bring it out to the wrong side of the skirt and show us what we have. These are the two sides allowance, and this is the zipper allowance. So when I was joining my lining to lining, I did not finish it up to the zipper exactly. That's what you're seeing here. So that's the point where every other thing came out from. That's where we brought out the skirt from to the right side. If you close it completely, you will not have any access to the inside of the skirt again. So it is when you finish ironing, because we will still need to open up the inside of this skirt to iron. Everything is looking squeezed and rough because we have not ironed, right? So before I use my thread and needle to close this small hole that we have, I'm going to have to give it a very good press, both the lining seams and the main fabric, making sure it's all flat before we will close down that small space we opened with our thread and needle. And after doing that, this is how neat your skirt is supposed to look. Look how neatly fixed the zipper is. All the zipper allowances and the side allowance, they are all hidden inside. This is how to achieve a very neat finish on your skirt. As you are watching this tutorial, endeavor to put what you watch into practice. It is practice that makes perfect. When you practice, when you do it over and over again, you'll see how simple it is to do a neat job. And if you're still struggling with making neat outfits, registration is on for our 3 months beginner to intermediate fashion class. The link to register is in the description box. We are currently running a promo for our February batch, and the link to register is in the description box. Kindly use this opportunity to register and save your spot, and I'll see you in class. Thank you so much for watching to this point. We've come to the end of this tutorial. Here is the beautiful skirt that we just made from this tutorial. I've paired it with this beautiful top as well. We already dropped the tutorial of the top on the channel. Do well to check it out. The links to all of them will be in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and share, and I'll see you in our next tutorial.